Hey, Steve Maeda here with the 21 Convention podcast, and we have James Maclane and James Marshall on this podcast. This is a pretty awesome interview. We get very deep, we get very personal, but also we talk about sex, the sexual dynamics, threesomes, working with multiple partners, and just the lifestyle that is necessary to really cultivate that, to be the foundation for that. Don't forget to subscribe to our station. If you like what you see, pass it on social media. Let's keep this dialogue going, and let's get into this interview with James Marshall and James Maclane. Here we are with James Marshall, James Maclane, and this is the 21 Convention podcast. What's happening, guys?
What's up? It's the two Australian Jameses.
The two Aussie Jameses, skinny, big noses.
Yeah, there's quite a few correlations between us.
Man, so everybody has a cool story about how people met and came together, but you guys have known each other since, what, 07?
Yeah, 2007.
So how did that all happen?
I met a guy in the seduction community who actually got laid a lot. Well, fuck this man! Wow! He's got like 3, 4, 5 girlfriends. Like I didn't. So yeah, I was very excited to meet him.
Yeah, he actually hunted me down because this guy's obsessed with like finding out who actually gets any kind of results in this industry, and he'd been searching and hadn't found anyone, and then he heard about me and came and hunted me down back when I was a bit of a musician bum that was just doing my thing in Melbourne, Australia.
And we got introduced by some lair dude.
No, let me ask you guys this. Yeah. I'll say this. You guys don't share this opinion, but who was that fucking idiot guy from Australia that?
Alex Coulson.
Yeah. When you guys said finally a guy that gets laid, I was like,
yeah.
That because he was kind of the standard for. It wasn't only
first
there
mover,
some other guys,
the first mover in Australia.
Yeah, really big kind of like name dude that came out of there.
There was quite a. It's funny. It's a bit of an interesting scene. The Australian seduction scene of around those years, 2006, 7, 8. It was really good. Like there was a bunch of guys that came out of that who most of them now are not dating coaches. They're just like DJs or like drug dealers or whatever somewhere else.
DJ.
But guys who are fucking really good and you know, it's like when there's a music scene somewhere, like in New Zealand, for example, dub music is really good. You're like, why? I don't know. It's just like something appears and then everyone bounced off each other. And that period, there was about 4 or 5 of us who hooked up in Melbourne, Australia, and really exploded in terms of growth and ability, and we learned a lot off each other. Yeah. And completely in isolation to the US scene. None of us got involved with it.
Totally. Because, one, you guys came up with something different. I mean, you guys actually both came up with something different yourselves, but you can see that it is separate from what was happening in the U.S., and the U.S. kind of grew up in this other way, and then even U.K. and some European stuff. But yeah, man, so what was that like when you guys first met each other and to see each other grow?
I mean, watching James grow has been astounding. He's always been a really impressive guy, but I mean, watching his speech the other day, I mean, it's just phenomenal. I've actually written down somewhere what I get out of it, but yeah, I mean, he's just spiritually, I mean, his skills with women have always been good, but I mean, he's gone to a completely different level. I feel he's grown a lot as a coach too, which once you've coached hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of guys, not 15 at a time like some guys do it, you just learn from every guy. So it's like he's 7 years, but he's sort of grown 20 or 30. Travel would obviously, any man who travels in a big way is just going to experience personal growth. I don't think you can really compete with any other way.
And so what was James Maclane like?
James was, I mean, the interesting thing about James is his story is that he came from a very low place with women, and he grew up in this following the societal model, which was, study hard, get a good job.
How old were you when you had gotten involved with it?
I managed to stay a virgin until 27. I don't think that even counts.
Really?
I was inside her like 2.5 minutes, and then I was with her 2 or 3 days, and then I got like that much wood, and she was really sweet. She jumped on top, grabbed the thing at the base, and got something more in there, and then she swiveled around a bit. And I saw these tits in front of me. I went, whoa! And, it was another 4 years till I got my second shot. But
really.
Yeah, just so repressed. So I got to be successful. I got to have money. I got to have muscles. Went to the gym and built the muscles. I got to be cool. I got to be good at sport. I got to be all these fucking things before a woman will ever consider me. So I know a lot of guys out there probably have that sort of you might not have been a virgin, but you might just be with a girl and you're like, why am I with this girl?
Man,
but
so
you're too scared to leave because you're not
actually,
confident enough in
James,
yourself.
continue on with.
Well, yeah. So I mean, we did things very differently because for me, growing up, it was about music and experience and drugs and people, and so I incrementally learnt to be good with girls over a period of 10 years, whereas he did the crash course, where it's was it like 31 when you kind of quit the whole finance game, and he just went on this endless loop of the world, and I'm a well-traveled man. I've done like 40 countries or something like that, and he's done over 100.
Wow.
Yeah, he's the most well-traveled person that I think I've ever met, because I think he was really trying to make up for that lost time where you were just like, fuck it, I'm going to go and experience as much of life as I can through travel, through women, through self-expression, through spirituality. And that was what I really liked about him, was that for a guy, starting out on a very different path when you're in your 30s, most people have already calcified by that time.
Yes, yeah.
That's like, well, I know what I am, and you just do what you're doing. And he just, flipped and did the complete opposite because he knew that, well, if I keep doing this, I'm just going to waste my fucking life.
Yeah, man. Let me ask you this: like, what was the frustration and anger and because we work with guys, and there's just so much confusion that comes into play when you're a virgin at 27 and then you don't get your next shot till you're 31, What was that like in transitioning out of that?
I was just totally brainwashed. I thought I've got to be all that. My childhood wasn't pleasant, and I was put down a lot, and I just had this idea that I had to be all these things before a woman would even consider me. But the thing I did that might be helpful to some of the viewers, I had this shopping list of things I needed to be before even a 7 would consider me. And my shopping list, I mean, if Brad Pitt had this shopping list, it would have been a bit ambitious for him. And all I was doing was protecting myself from ever being hurt.
Yeah.
It's just so pathetic. Oh, what I said in my speech, how a lot of very intelligent guys, they make such dumb decisions in this area of their life, even though they're brilliant at that. And I mean, looking back, a lot of people have looked at me and said, wow, that guy's successful, he's good at sport, great at business. But I was so pathetic. Just how brainwashed I was by society.
And where you're at now, such a different place. Where did you see that transition, James? Because you getting to know him in 2007 and moving along, I got to know you in 2012 and just seeing snapshots, so James knows you really well. But where did you see that transition with the other James Maclane?
Well, we were sort of going on parallel journeys, and we've ducked in and out of our lives. We don't get to see each other that much, unfortunately, because we live on other sides of the planet, but at least once a year we'll check in and spend a couple of days together. And yeah, I mean, for him, his journey has been, he was really obsessed about the highest quality of woman, and that's something that he's a connoisseur of. And
not a bad thing.
And for a long time, I didn't really get it because, to be honest, he's gangly and he's got a bit of a squeaky voice and his posture's not perfect. And his game's good, but I've met guys who've got better conversation skills and whatever else, but he's always with startlingly beautiful women who are always usually at least masters, if not a PhD, very intelligent, very proud, very elegant women. I've met a bunch of these over the years that I've known him, and that was something that kind of flabbergasted me at first, because there's been a few guys I've met where I'm just like, I don't know why it's working for them.
Right. Yeah.
Because even if they're good, their results are fucking insane. Mm-hmm. And this is my opinion, because I've thought about this, over the years about why it is that you get such great results. And I feel like it's that you just treat super high-end women like people. You don't treat them as if they're princesses. You're not trying to necessarily impress them, and you feel entitled to those kinds of girls. Yeah. Those are the ones you want, because I often tell students this. They're like, "Oh, well, how do I get a 10?" And I said, "Only approach 10s." Yeah, because that's what you do. You only approach girls that you perceive to be your ideal women. Would that be right?
That's pretty close. Yeah.
That's an interesting concept, and I can see that in you too, especially because a very attractive woman, and this is probably some great advice that people can get out of it, but a very attractive woman knows she's hot. Everybody validates that, and it can also be toxifying how that's validated. And if you treated her like a woman, of just or beautiful, or notice things about her that other than her tits and her ass, and noticed her sense of self or persona, and then through that could look at her body and experience it. I think, man, that's a lot of what women are missing.
Actually, I'm just thinking, I've never had this thought before, because I left it so late, I wasn't 19 and wanted to fuck everything that walked upright without balls. So when I actually got to experience women, I'd probably got that, I gotta fuck everything I can see out of me. So I only wanted more quality, and I don't know I don't know if I've got a secret, but I can walk up to the hottest girl and I'm like, so tell me about books you read, or tell me about where you dream of traveling to. And if I don't get something substantial to that, I just fuck off.
Yeah.
And I've had literally models grab their other model friend and follow me around a bar when I'm coaching a boot camp, watching me talking to all these girls, and then drag me back to their apartment. Just because it's like, what? I didn't have a decent book to talk about, so you just dismiss me? And whether they're attracted to me or not, they just have to fucking find out why.
And that is the secret, by the way.
Yeah, it's
You
just,
got it.
Yeah, I mean, as James will say too, having some degree of sexual skill also.
But it's an interesting thing, It's like everybody puts sex and stuff on a pedestal, and you came from a place where that's really, really difficult, man. I mean, there's not a lot of people who transition out of that 27-year-old, 31-year-old like sexual deficit and move into this kind of like empowerment of really knowing and expressing what you want. You are somebody, for people that don't know, that is all about sex, all about femininity, and teaches within the realms and expressions of that. So when that comes down to it, what is femininity to you? I'm sure you could, man, that's,
Jesus Christ, that's a big question.
Okay, when you think about a woman and you think sex, you see beauty, you see that 10. But what is the potential that you're searching for within her?
I'll just answer this in a probably wanky way for anyone who hasn't meditated. The greatest sex you'll ever have is very similar to meditation. You're in this moment with a person, there should be a lot of eye contact. Yeah. You might be saying, I love you. You might be in a powerful position. And, I haven't done as much as James, but I've done a lot of meditation. It wasn't important to my life, it was crucial to my life. But it's just it's like being in the deepest moments of, say, a 10-day meditation.
I think sex can be meditation.
Looking in her eyes, and you're just off, and it's like you can just experience, I don't know, everything around you through sex at that level. Yeah. But you don't get that by dragging drunk girls out of bars and shit. And you got to find someone special, and you've got to get that connection. And another thing, you got to break down her insecurities, which is a big reason why a lot of guys have sexual problems, because the women in our society are just so fucking insecure. Not their fault.
Yeah, I think to be to be able to have a woman who's truly feminine, you need to be a great lover of yourself first. Yeah, it's because so many men are disassociated from their penises, from their hearts, and their sexuality. I've talked about this before in terms of things like pornography and prostitution use, and totally objectification of women really separates you from actual real relationships and real sex with somebody. So until you can really get in touch with your own sexuality, which means being able to firstly get over the internal blocks such as shame and guilt and fear about it, the conditioning that whoever has told you that it's wrong or it's sinful or it should only be used in certain aspects, or that if you're a man who pursues his sexual life, you're an aggressor and an abuser. So being able to work through those, which is where ideas and conferences like this start to unplug from this. And then at the same time, maybe we'll save this till after the break because it's a bigger topic.
And that leads us into, hey, we're going to be right back talking with James Maclane, James Marshall, and getting in some good discussion. Welcome back. We're here with James Maclane, James Marshall, and man, you hit on some strong points of, actually in your speech you called it the crisis of masculinity, and the misinterpretation of femininity. And you actually, man, you always bring up some good points about this, but what you had just even said about you know, women and sexuality and finding that sort of femininity, getting and seeing it almost as this meditative exchange. You know, what has it been that you came from like the template cookie cutter lifestyle of what we're supposed to be, and sex changed you, and then you took, you know, going crazy, partying, all that stuff, and then sex, and then that changed you into a different expression into business. So, you know, how has this seduction shaped and changed your life into the expression that it is today? Because you do not look like a 27-year-old virgin. You know?
My girlfriend struggled with that. I sort of, because of travel and because of this much pain accumulated, I was very fortunate in a number of areas. My first girlfriend, who, you know, we had nothing in common with, and it was a very dead relationship. She was very good in bed. She was an excellent sex teacher. Sort of, I don't know, the 15th girl I slept with or something, was the most beautiful woman I've seen on earth to this day. It's my opinion. People might disagree with me, but I don't have that fear of beautiful women that some guys might have. So I sort of came into the seduction industry. I certainly learned a bit off James, but I was sort of more interested in teaching than growing myself with women. I haven't been promiscuous at all these last few years. It's been more, just got a couple of girls I see all the time and the odd new one.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I want to come back to that, but just because that hurt, and I have a very similar story with it, but for yourself, how has this changed with, you know, seduction, interacting with women, you know, coming from a solid background, because you talk about your mother a lot, and that transitioning now into a different level of success and transformation?
Well, I think like a lot of guys, when you get into focusing in on seduction, it's about proving self-worth. Yeah, so there's always an element of when you weren't the cool guy at school, when you weren't successful with women. Now I got successful much earlier than he did, but I still came from a position where I was a nerdy kid, and you have that thing where you're like, well, I'm going to prove I can get the hot chicks, and I think that fuel is often something that kicks guys along to start off with, but it's finite, because really it's an ego game. And if that's what gets you started, well, that's what gets you started. But I went, and he met me during the height of that period, right? And you were saying that early
6
in the break.
girlfriends, 7 girls.
Yeah, and like I had 5 girlfriends at that time, not because I just like happened to meet 5 cool chicks, because that was my plan. I was like, this year I will get 5 cool girlfriends who know about each other. Yeah, because then I will be fucking cool, you know? And
Very driven.
Yeah, so I was obsessed about that. And after that period, because that's the thing that sort of led me into my first kind of existential crisis, because I did that, and then I had the weight of 5 hearts weighing on me of these women. And then I was like, and what am I doing this for? I'm just literally doing this just to prove that I'm fucking a boss.
Yeah.
And then so I just went. That was when I went on a big journey, let them all go. You know, fell apart. Oh fuck, what am I doing? And then had to reignite my pursuit of seduction in a different way, which led me to meet, you know, the one woman that trashed all the others at that point in my life, and fall in love, and then move on to that next stage.
It's interesting how that happens. I mean, and I don't want to say it's an absolute, it happens to everybody, but you will go through your times in your life where, you know, you're having a lot of sex, or, you know, you're doing the kind of like male ideal, but then somebody comes along and it just, you know, and it's happened multiple times in probably all of our lives.
Oh, yeah,
you know? And it's like, I think a lot of guys, when they're looking at the seduction industry, don't see that as a part of the equation. You know, not that it's a measurable thing, but it happens. Everybody, you know. With yourself, you know, you're talking, you've mentioned a couple times just the pain and transitioning out of it. I know for myself, I remember when I was about 26, and I was not super, you know, sexually active. It was probably like the 4th or 5th girl that I was with, but she taught me how to like love. You know, when I felt that, fuck.
That's a huge, monumental lesson.
No, but it, like, to learn. Shit came out too. You know, it was like, she says, I remember you used to get totally wasted, then you'd have to have sex because that's how you felt. You know, that's how you processed emotion, and then you would start crying every day. And I never thought of it that way. Like, she'll tell me that now, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot of crazy stuff. You know, for yourself, what was that, you know, process of processing through that pain, you know, and traveling and all that sort of stuff?
I suppose I'm quite close to Sasha in some ways. sort of not the best childhood and think the only way I can solve that is to become this uber successful guy, which, you know, to a large extent I did, and a lot of people looked at me and admired me. But I just sort of, every woman I was with was a stepping stone to the man I am today. And one of the things, I don't know, James and I, for the slight competition, I've managed to have girlfriends from 31 countries, and I'm not the sort of dump a load of cum in them, kick them out in the morning type guy. I got to know them often, we got to meet their families. A lot of them were in the same, a lot of them I met in their country, which was just the most profound growth experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I often joke to my girlfriends, you've got to thank, you know, my third girlfriend for me being this good in bed, or you've got to thank my whatever 15th or 20th for the fact that I know when you're upset, I just need to hold you and let you cry type thing. And it's just like been a learning process from women. And James and I, and James too now, we're lucky enough, this is very important, we've got to experience girlfriends from so many different cultures, vis-a-vis the guy who's just gone out and nailed a whole bunch of girls in a LA Sydney nightclub type thing. So, you know, we've got the United Nations and then some.
I got to bring up a question for both of you guys. So American seduction guys will always say, or it's a very common thing talked about, you know, what's wrong with American women? Because we're, you know, same thing. It's like different countries, totally different world. You know, it's a unique, every woman has a unique feminine expression, but then from their country too. And there's a barrier or something with American women. Not that I'm against it. There's beautiful American women, but that relationship, that touch with the femininity, the touch with like the total sexual release, it's very hard to find. Whereas it's a lot easier to find in other countries. Have you guys found the same thing?
Yeah, well, I think because there's been a deconstruction of masculine, feminine roles in the Western world in general. Well, actually, I would say Australia, UK, USA particularly.
Okay.
Because in Europe, which is Western world, Europe still has quite clear understandings of what men and women are. It doesn't mean that there's not a pursuit of equality in the workplace or whatever, but it's like, you know, you go to the Balkans or you go to France or Italy or Spain, and women just have a different way about them. You know, they move differently, they're more sensual. You know, like having a Russian girl like come up and speak into your ear is more erotic than, you know, having a threesome with two Aussie girls, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like a great story about that one too.
Yeah, there's, and I mean, I think it's also, it can be to do with religion. Like if you have America in many parts is highly religious to this day, and there's a lot that is, you know, when you have a culture that says that sex is a commodity that is traded within marriage, or you say that it's sinful, then of course that affects people's sexuality. I think often in Europe, although it is the nominally religious countries, they're very decadent about they just like, yes, I'm Catholic, but you know what, you know, let's be honest here.
Yeah. No, it is totally different. Like there's almost like no sexual identity in the States, so they're trying to search for it and all this stuff which isn't sex. But in Europe, there's this diversity in it, and there's an honesty about it. Like there are devout Catholics, you know, that go to church or you know, go on Sunday and do mass.
And then go
Americans
and see their mistress.
don't. Yeah. And you know, they do the religion as more than what a lot of American people would, but the Americans hold on to this other side.
Because I mean, Australia and America particularly, they're naive young cultures.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, in a way, they're proto-cultures. They've only been around a couple of hundred or 400 years.
Yeah.
Whereas you have things in Europe or in you know, Latin America or
everywhere else.
Yeah. But I mean, then you go over to Asia, and it's highly repressive over there as well, Middle East and so on. So I don't know. I mean, what is wrong with them? I don't know. I don't date Australians or Americans.
If I can just say from the woman's perspective, it's not their fault, it's the world they grow up in.
That's true.
It's the
That's
media,
a great point.
It's Rupert Murdoch, a great Australian. It's just, I don't, yeah, because some guys get really bitter about Australian American women. And yeah, they probably are a bit too masculine for most of our liking. But I mean, a lot of our guys are very feminine. I mean, the guys I learnt off were from Croatia and Brazil and, you know, Italy, France. There's obviously some Australians, Americans who are really good, but the guys, they go, Jesus Christ, you know, the way they touch them or the way they hold their eye contact. I'm like, I've never seen an Australian guy do that. So.
Yeah, when you have this neutralisation of masculine, feminine, then the woman is confused as well. She's defensive or she's playing games. And you'll see that, like, that's one thing I love about, like, for example, Russian women, they don't play games. They play They play the game, as in the game of sexual tension. They'll flirt. Doesn't mean that they're easy or that they're like really logical about sex. But if they like you, they will encourage you. They'll you know, they'll give you enough rope so that you can come and like move in on them, and they'll back off just a little bit to increase the tension, not because they're going to like be catty about it.
And that's always surprising about like an Eastern European woman. You just don't get, and even with Brazil, because two very different cultures, but is an American or somebody growing up in like a newer culture, you know, like Aussie culture or perhaps English culture, which isn't old, or isn't that young, but the thing is that you're just not used to a woman being that direct. So you're just like, okay, what else do I say? And then even in Brazil,
oh my God,
it's like you can't. Wait, I can just go up and say you're beautiful, and not even like in a direct game way. It's just like that's what you do, and I can buy a drink and you know, fall into romance right away. You know, fall into like, you know, physical escalation, you know, and interaction with their femininity directly. It just doesn't make sense, you know, and it's just, to see that language is cool.
This Brazilian, I shouldn't say this, I live beside a Brazilian woman who's, I don't know, late 30s. She's got kids taller than me. And I went running one day, and you know, I'm no Arnold Schwarzenegger. And she looked me in the eyes, and she looked me up and down, and she looked me back in the eyes again. And I just sort of went, I hadn't done that since I was in Colombia. It's like no Western woman can ever look at you like that. She just, whoa. And that's right. That's what James and I probably learnt to do it to girls, watching. Eye contact. Oh,
well,
my God.
I think that's the biggest thing you can learn from sex is you learn it from women. You know, what I always tell people is like from other pickup teachers or from when I was like learning, I learned how to teach. You know, and then I learned a lot from my clients, like, because I'd see them do things different. Even if they were asking me, I was like impressed. Like, oh, I'm going to try that. You know, and teach it to somebody else. Then you see what works. But man, to really learn the language of sex and women, which to start out with was tough. I learned that all from it with women. You know, the eye contact.
And you have to, and to learn from women, you have to be very receptive to what they're doing. Yeah, it's like, I mean, a very wise woman once told me, a man who's good in bed knows that he can't fuck every woman the same way. Yeah, it's like, because a lot of guys think that good sex is what they see on porn, which is, you know, hammer away for 30 minutes. It's about stamina and it's about aggression. Yeah. Right? And so, which, I mean, there is elements where those things will be useful.
Absolutely,
but that you become a really good lover through communication and sensitivity. Even if it's rough sex, it's not that I'm like doing that thing that you're supposed to do or, you know, pressing the clitoris in this way. It's actually being able to communicate with a girl and say, do you like it this way? Do you like it this way? Reading her body and responding to it.
Dependent, absolutely. Make a point we'll probably all agree with. Meditation helps that so much because you're just sensitive to what other people are thinking, probably the right brain's communication mechanism. But yeah, I attribute, you know, a fair degree of my sexual knowing what to do, what she wants next to meditation. Yeah, and again, I'm not some monk expert meditator, but I've done a little bit, and
most people watching this don't want to be that. You know, so
I wouldn't mind actually.
Eventually, we'll probably end up in a monastery. The irony.
My new term: once a man conquers the pussy, he goes and tries to conquer something far, far, far more difficult, and that's the spirit. And that's probably one of the reasons why I've stayed on in this business, because
you know it's
the whole of the world.
This is interesting because it comes up all the time, especially when talking about seduction with people. You know, in Chinese philosophy, there's the yin and the yang, and everybody always talks about that. But before the yin and the yang, there was the wuji, and that was the one. You know, and so the one had to split and separate and build a totally different identity, and that's our expressions. You know, and now we're, you know, the 10,000 things and all that sort of stuff. But in order to know the truth, you know, we can get there through a system, a method, your journey, Sasha's journey, whoever's journey. But the one is the truth. And you need a woman, the man and woman, in order to be complete, I think need to come together, you know. And if you're gay or you know, you like the same sex, then you come together in that way. But
yes, you're complementary opposite, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be about gender necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that unification is so key, you know, to come back to that. And sex you know, like you keep bringing up the correlation with meditation. I think it is.
It is. It's just you can probably get deeper if you really know how to have sex with someone you care about, or preferably love, than you could meditate. Would you agree? You can get.
Yeah,
maybe not what you're talking
well,
about before.
I guess it depends on the level of meditation, but it's. I mean, maybe it's good to just give a quick definition, because we use this word all the time.
Yeah,
my personal definition of meditation is awareness mixed with equanimity. So it's the process of being aware internally of all processes, thoughts, emotions, physicality, and then very importantly being at ease and balance with that, the unreactivity or the equanimous, because otherwise. Yeah, if you don't have that kind of definition, you can get lost in a dogmatic kind of like, well, I just say this thing over and again, or I imagine this thing, and you're not actually understanding the process of how it helps you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all of our reactive behaviours that we have inside ourselves, anger, frustration, bitterness, depression, all that sort of stuff, that comes from processes inside ourselves happening that we feel physically, and then they turn into thoughts and emotions, and then we react to them and we feed them.
Yeah.
And so the way that you use meditation is that you use it to actually dissolve and let that stuff pass. And so that then you can move through your negative habit patterns.
No, man, it's
amazing. Amazing thing to go through.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird because everybody does it in such different ways, but there's always the tension in the body, the tension in the mind, and how we can release, and how everything in nature, it's a holding on of tension and a release of it. But there's never there's never the stagnancy of either of those. There's never the constant. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back to some cool stuff, but yeah, let's keep this conversation going. So we're back with James Marshall, James Maclane, and you know, let's get into this thing of, you guys have known each other for so long, and you know, how have you guys influenced and exchanged with one another, learned from one another? You know, where did that begin and where's it going?
Yeah, James, as I said, I met him in 2007. There's a lot of things, apart from someone who does my job, who I really like and gets results in a massive way. In terms of seduction, the biggest thing I learnt off him was he almost turned it into a science. What happens when you start seeing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many he's got up to, probably a lot more than me. You know, what happens when you start seeing more than 3 women at a time? And it turns into this hierarchical structure, which I think, it probably was your speech, if you haven't seen it, where the one at the top is just, this is all James, not me, it's true, where the one at the top gets demanding and bitchy and cranky with you all the time, and all the ones underneath it, they sort of know they're lower down the hierarchy and they compete with you. And shortly after this discussion with James, I was seeing 3 girls in the city he lives in, and one of them, who was a banker, every time she sees me, she starts bringing me a book or a new shirt. She wouldn't let me pay for dinner, and it was just exactly James's science. She knew she was down the totem pole, so being a woman, she wanted to rise up it. But yeah, that was all stuff I learnt from James, which was quite incredible, that the amount of detail he broke this, the analytical mind behind women's behaviour when you're seeing more than one of them. So that's probably, I probably learnt a lot of stuff off him just by being around him that I don't actually give him credit for. Maybe vice versa too. It's just you learn stuff by being around cool people. But that's the thing that stands out as, that's James taught me that. And it's really useful. It's really funny too, just watching the way the other girls react. The other thing about James is, he's just got more fucking friends than God. It's like, it's just, you just hang out. I'm this pathetic fucking financial market yuppie, turned traveller, turned whatever. And I'd come and stay in his house when I was doing boot camps in Melbourne, and you'd meet like a prostitute, then a film producer, then a drug dealer, then a shaman, then a yogi, then strippers galore, and all these cool guys, and just the whole panorama of life, and just, you know, and then bankers love him, and corporate lawyers love him, and many women love him. It's just to be around him, to someone who, it was quite amazing. I used to say going to live at James's, slum in Brunswick, I don't know how, the dishes, there's 2 guys there, 3, 4 new girls a month, probably a week sometimes, and the dish is like, I mean, it was just terrible. The dishes piled up forever, and some of the girls that were shagging actually washed them for them out of pity. Oh,
that's the mark of a true seduction person's living conditions.
Yeah. It was pretty brutal back in those days. We were not very civilized young men.
Yeah. Lots of girls.
I remember
lots of mess.
He stayed over one night and he brought a girl in, and I let him use my bedroom. Of course,
this is
as you do. And he came out the next morning and he said, "Oh, thanks so much for letting me use your bed." I'm like, "Whatever." And he's like, "You want me to wash the sheets?" And I just went, "What?" Well, do you want me to wash
just
the sheets?
screwed in like 7 months of
I said,
20 different
You think we change the sheets every time a woman comes over? Dude, relax.
Man, I just wanted to be a polite house guest, but he looked at me like, I think my first was from Planet Zotog. So, he's just, what?
But however, these days, ladies, I do tend to change the sheets very
This
regularly.
is 29-year-old James.
Yeah. This was.
That was a big favour too.
Well, I only had one set of sheets back then.
Yeah, I know. Same with that. I think I had a place for like 4 years and never changed the sheets.
Revolting. It's beautiful.
Actually,
well, hey, I didn't care, but afterwards everybody found out about it. They're like, what? What did I just do?
But now when I'm teaching guys, I'm like, your seduction location is very important. You need
Right.
to have lighting, make sure there's no shit on the toilets, make sure that
No
the place
skid
is
marks.
clean and it smells nice. Yeah.
That's
Actually,
too
I
much
just
work.
wanted to share my new piece of intellectual property, OWPJ. That's the science of being incredible with women. Can either of you guess what it is?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm sure James could if I gave him time. OWPJ. Other women's pussy juices. So little did he know, but not washing the sheets, women went in there and go, I want this guy. I smell 12 other women.
No, man, that's like real. Dude, you could do so much shit with that. I mean, like whenever, okay, so you talked about sleep with multiple women.
Yeah.
They'll do shit like put their fucking pussy juice on your clothes. And it, like crazy stuff like that. Or they'll be like, all sorts of different requests. But it all comes down to this primal stuff like scent or bodily fluids and all this sort of stuff to get it on you. Like, and the other thing too, which I think is funny, is if you're, around a lot of women, they'll do stuff like, I remember this one girl that used to wipe her pussy juice on me and then say, go talk to women. And, women would just be like talking to me. And they'd be like, isn't that so hot? They're all turned on. And I'm like, I think they're just talking to me. But it just gets so, kind of like territorial in a very, very primal way. And it's actually beautiful. It's not controlling. It's this really, really awesome orchestration of, just their real selves.
Animals. All of us. Fuck.
Yeah, how'd that happen? I wish I had more permission to be an animal. But,
Speaking of animals, let's talk about this dude and the fact that fairly regularly there's more than one lady in his bed and they both want to be there and they're always much younger than him because he's a pretty old bastard. Yeah, this was something that, because I when I first met him, I'd never had a threesome. I was just,
Really?
No, it was just still I was.
you had all these women around.
Yeah, I know, but it was one of those mystical barriers to me where I was just like, how the fuck do you do that? And this guy is one of two guys I know who are the other one was like a 6'4" black Jamaican drug dealer, and then this guy who were good with threesomes. So how the hell do you do that, Jamie?
It's interesting. Okay, I'll switch it back to you for a second. Your French girlfriend lined up this gorgeous Aussie to have a threesome, and you thought it would be a good idea to do drugs with flows. And I'm like, fuck, shit, they're naked in the bed, and you're running away.
I know, that was the worst night of my
no,
life.
fuck them.
This is
Worst night of my life.
this is the big lesson about threesomes. Every time except when I've brought two girls who are girlfriends together and it's comfortable, every time I do it, I can't get it up. Just every time I get a new combination of girls, it's like my little penis just runs into my scrotum and hides. There's some completely fucking nervous energy, and if you train salesmen and their income goes up and up and up, they get to this self-sabotage level. So the thing I've found, when you suddenly get two girls in your bed, it's like two naked young hot bodies. And your dick just disappears on you. Now, I've done it enough to know that this is going to happen.
Part of the process, yeah.
So I just prepare for it, and I make sure, certainly age 43, I don't eat for like 5-6 hours, so I've got all the blood I possibly can available for there, so if I do get any wood. And that's why I know I've never sort of gone and got two fresh girls. I've always slept with one of them. But you've just got to have a girl where you can just get it started. Because as you know, once you get in a wet hole, wood follows.
Yeah, once you get in that mode of, this is a very common thing. In group sex, it happens a lot. And there's a lot of questions about just, not getting it up in general. But in group sex, whether it's like 2 guys, 2 women, everybody, but no, man.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, no, so like me and my porn buddies talk about it all the time. If there's guys that are acting all alpha and you want to see them fail, get a big gangbang to happen, and they will be like, oh, sorry. So take us through the process. But it is such a common thing that people talk about because there's just so much of that energy.
Yeah. We're from the old school where you didn't pop Viagra to deal with this too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because when you do that, it's something missing from it. But there's something beautiful about that woman getting it started. Getting in the mode. Yeah. And her and then there's her. I don't want to say ownership, but her ownership of your feeling. And then the other girl liking it and getting aroused by it. But go, dude.
It's a truly amazing thing. The first thing I'll say is guys have these dreams about threesomes, but there's not really much in it for us. It is a lot of fucking hard work. And I got back from a 8-day holiday with my 2 girlfriends in Perth, and I looked in the mirror, I was like, my abs were just ready for the cover of Men's Health, because I'd been straddled over these 2 girls 4 or 5 hours a day while they did their shit. I didn't have any biceps or triceps or any other muscles, but my abs, man, I was like, that's sex. I won't let you.
That's fucking on vacation for 5 hours.
It's not sit-ups, it's sex, yeah. So, but you particularly, this is a good piece of advice. You've got your legs and a shoulder, so you can get the clit and the clit right into G-spot, and there's a girl on top of her with lips on her lips or breasts on her lips, and the hair dropping all over them, particularly when you get a girlfriend or 2 girlfriends who can really work another girl's clit well, and then the other girl, if she's good, has got the other girl, and all 3 of you come at once. It is just unbelievable. I was getting that sort of every second or third week for a while. But, and this is the thing, no one believes me. Can you guess the best thing about threesomes? Or having 2 girlfriends? Give each one guess. By far.
Having them do your dishes afterwards.
No, what do you think?
Just like having sex with 2 girls all the time. That seems to be it.
It's when you wake up in the morning and everyone's in their own sort of sleeping position, and they just both roll on top of you and hold hands. Sometimes you sleep for an extra hour. Sometimes it leads to more sex, but they sit and hold hands, and they're both lying on your shoulder, and you're just like, oh, it's just bliss.
So that like feeling of like absolute connection. The total
the 3-way
of
thing. That is really beautiful. And my main 2 girlfriends, I mean, they're almost as into each other as I'm into them.
Yeah.
Well, that's really important in that situation. Yeah. It's just like if it's ever a situation where one person's just kind of doing it to please the other, or if a guy's trying to convince his girlfriend to like do it and she does it because she wants to please him, it's going to fuck up the relationship.
I mean, that is important because with sex, like if a guy can't get it up and he freaks out, and stops, and he doesn't decompress himself out of that, that's some years of confusion of something that doesn't. I'm glad you talked about that because it doesn't need to be confused. Or if a woman feels uncomfortable, something didn't go right.
It's a really good piece of advice on that. Oftentimes, if you're a healthy dude and you can't get up, it's not your fault, it's her fault. She's scared shitless for some reason. So there's many things you can do, but give her a nice massage. Just get some relaxing energy in place, let her relax, get her comfortable with touch. But one of the funny things about having 2 girlfriends is, it's like whenever they go around holding hands in public and stuff, it's like, whoo, just like that whole, it's like some sort of spiritual thing.
It's crazy.
And particularly at the beach.
The world notices.
When they're running around topless at the beach holding hands and stuff, and I initiate that and then tease the shit out of one of them and fuck the other. But the thing is, women love the attention.
Like, and that kind of attention.
They're like,
that's not the objectifying attention. That's the appreciation. And I think men don't realize that like when women dress up, when women flirt, that's not to be objectified. That's to be a trait of femininity that they're expressing.
They want the attention. It's like...
It's a beautiful thing.
Like everyone's looking, just fucking stop holding hands. They're like, hold hands, hold hands. No. But you've had your fair share of threesomes too, haven't you? Yeah.
Fair share.
I want to say this because this was interesting. You were talking about, that feeling of connection. I think, because I think we've all been there where we're having good sex. But I think a lot of the times, especially with women, the bad sex comes the next day, or when that connection doesn't happen. When you're not holding hands in the bed afterwards, and there isn't that full proper release.
I think it's a really important skill to know how to round off a one-night stand, or to round off any kind of sexual experience. Like I remember the first time I had a one-night stand. It was pretty late actually, because I was always like the second night guy, and I remember the next morning, because I knew I wasn't going to see her again. I just like walked to the door and I went, oh, okay, so see ya, because I didn't want to give her the wrong impression or something. And then I just saw this look on her face of regret as she walked out the door, and I closed the door, and I went, that was wrong. I'm never going to do that again. Yeah. Because I think it's very common for guys to be cold with women afterwards because they don't want to give her the wrong impression, which is the wrong thing to do. You need to round off a sexual experience, particularly if you're getting into really kind of brutal sex, if you're getting into really hardcore bondage, or belting a girl around, which is great as long as it's done within a safe structure. But at the end of that, you always need to round it off so that she feels safe, appreciated, and respected again. Because otherwise, you're creating trauma in her, because the more vulnerable she gets, the more open she gets sexually, the more she needs to then be protected and looked after that scenario. So gentlemen, always with your one-night stands, at the end, give them a big hug, say, you're really awesome, I had a great time, I wish you the best of luck. Something like that, so that she walks away feeling like that was a good decision, and that she's then going to be able to go through her life having one-night stands if she wishes to, and you're not going to piss in the pool for the rest of us.
Can I add to that? I would tend to call them, I don't have anything like, I'm not a one-night stand guy. But if I do, even if it was awkward, I'll always call them the next day. I do a bit of what James does, but yeah, I always just give them, hey, that was great last night. It's a bit awkward because they're always, whether they like you or not, they want to see whether you like them. But I just think, as you say, don't piss in the pool for others. Treat every woman with respect you treat anyone.
Man, we got to wrap up, and we got about, just in a minute, what's a message for both of you guys? What's a message that you would like to send out to the world about, life, sex, yourself, being a better person?
I don't know, I'll start. I think the reason James and I are where we are, and someone else might have said this, is just because we're sort of comfortable being who we are, whether that's through travel or number of sexual partners or meditation, which would be huge. So it's like you can I think you can tell guys who are actually really good with women by how strong their inner core is. And there you go. He's like solid as a rock. So, but yeah, he's done how many of the past nights? 6. Yeah.
Wow.
That's one of the reasons why.
10 days?
Yep.
Wow. And then for yourself, like, in a minute or a quick summary, what could you leave guys with?
Explore your inner self, your outer self, and create the lifestyle that you want. And don't let anybody tell you what that is. You need to decide that for yourself. But unless you're developing those 3 aspects, so investigating your internal world, dealing with your demons, mastering your social world and your external world, and building a lifestyle that actually makes you happy, then you won't be a satisfied man.
His answer was way better than mine.
So whatever. You got your own expression for a reason, man. I've been digging your stuff.
Listen to his answer.
Thanks for watching, guys. 21 Convention Podcast. James Maclane, James Marshall. We're signing off. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you got a lot out of that. It was really, really an intense interview. And just to be in the same room with those two, man, it got pretty crazy. Don't forget to subscribe to us, pass this on with social media, and let's build this dialogue. Leave a comment down below. Share it, express your thoughts, and let's make this a movement, a discussion between us, the world, and you. Thanks for watching.